What does rigging mean in sports? Throughout this series, the word has come with a ton of debate and generated an equal amount of dislikes. To me, rigging in sports is simple. If there's an outside influence that affects the result of a moment or game to satisfy an underlying motivation, that's a rigging. Sometimes the participants know, sometimes they don't, but it's the puppeteering from behind the scenes that makes us say, this doesn't smell right. And that's the part that matters to me the most, the pure insulting of our intelligence as fans. Are you ready to be challenged? 5 blatantly rigged moments in sports, part 4 is coming up right after this. As always, you can beat the conspiracy against you when it comes to high ticket prices by using the equalizer, SeatGeek. SeatGeek aggregates ticket prices from all over the web and gives them a color-coded rating from 1 to 100 to let you know if you're getting jobbed. And on top of that, hides nothing by letting you see the view from your seats before you even buy. Download the SeatGeek app from the link below and use my code FPV and get $20 off your first order. SeatGeek. Number 5, so you're saying there's a chance. The NBA is often up to NBA things, a league that is sometimes viewed with the same integrity as pro wrestling. It's often hard to take anything they do at face value. And that was no more prevalent than in 2012 when the NBA draft lottery surprisingly resulted in a generational talent ending up on a team that the NBA owned at the time. If that doesn't raise an eyebrow, I don't know what does. After ownership turmoil and poor financial health in 2010, the NBA purchased the Hornets from George Shinn for a bargain price of $300 million. The league owning a team? That doesn't open the door for shenanigans, does it? Realizing the stink was starting to permeate, the NBA lined up the sale of the squad to New Orleans billionaire Tom Benson. And if you've ever been in sales, sometimes you need a kicker for the deal, which seemed to include the number 1 overall pick in Anthony Davis with the low asking price of $338 million. Heading into the 2012 draft, the Hornets had only a 13.7% chance of winning the lottery. The Bobcats had double their ping pong balls, but the basketball gods somehow favored New Orleans. Let's be clear, rigging a draft would be difficult, but not impossible. The thing that causes the most speculation is that the draft is not shown to the public live, and the only fair measure is a rep from Ernst & Young to oversee the procedures, because accounting firms are incorruptible, eh? In the end, New Orleans getting the top pick greatly helped the league, the Pelicans, and Tom Benson. Everybody cried foul, including other owners. Never change, NBA. Never change. Number 4, a gigantic scandal. With the rituals and traditions of sumo, a sport that makes its giant participants fight in underwear, it's often surprising for Westerners to learn of Japanese wrestling's dark side. Sumo's underbelly is wrought with illegal gambling, intense hazing that has resulted in death, and in 2010, a match-fixing scandal rocked the sumo world. Here's how it worked. There are 6 professional tournaments a year, each one lasting 15 days, and in order to remain in the pros, a wrestler must achieve an 8-7 record. Rikishis who had already clinched their safe status began making deals with those who were on the fringe of relegation. In the 2002 book Freakonomics, it is speculated that match fixing was real, as an analysis showed that on the last day of the tourney, 70% of the 7-7 wrestlers won. This was confirmed in 2011 when text messages and emails were released, evidential of rigging, as the wrestlers in need of a win paid hefty sums to stay pros. This scandal, coupled with tell-all books outlining rampant drug use, insane sex parties, illegal gambling operations, and heavy mob influence on the sport, rocks sumo wrestling to the core. Match fixing is not illegal, and the only changes made after this was more oversight of the tournaments, though recent incidents have kept sumo's underwear streaky. Number 3, hey ref, turn on your phone. European football has an interesting fan base. One that apparently doesn't let a grudge go or mind ruining someone's life in the process. But that's what the outcome of the 2009 Champions League semifinal brought, as the matchup between Chelsea and Barcelona ended up haunting a referee's existence to this day. Let's look at where the motivation for a rigging would come from. It's speculated that UEFA would have been unhappy with an all-English final, which had happened in the previous year. With Man U already locking up a spot, it was up to Barca to get past a Chelsea team and superstar Didier Drogba. At the center of this controversy would be one man, referee Tom Vrabo. Chelsea pretty much did everything right in this game and pressed into Barca territory multiple times, and multiple times penalties were denied on seemingly questionable calls. Some claim Drogba was diving, which is probably true, but a missed handball on Barca was egregious. Tempers flared and the Chelsea players began turning their anger towards the ref, and ultimately Iniesta scored in the 93rd minute and put a cap on a frustrating game, and an All-England final was avoided. Vrabo had to go into hiding after the match and still receives death threats to this day. Though he admits he could have done things differently, I doubt he knowingly fixed the match, as it seemed he didn't want to interject himself on penalties and simply missed the blatant handball. He did make a bad call against Barca too, but you could say he was there for a reason, and his style of reffing favored Barca's rough play. Hey ref, you missed a couple calls. Number 2, same shit, different day. We all know the Olympic bidding process is an auction when it comes to a nation courting corrupt officials with gifts and payoffs. But FIFA likes to get in on that action too. The optics on Qatar's bid for the 2022 World Cup look terrible. Qatar is a tiny oil-rich nation in the Middle East with a population of less than 2 million. At the time of their bid in 2010, the country had only 3 stadiums, one outdated with a capacity of 50,000 and 2 others with less than 22,000. Qatar would need to build 10 world-class venues and upgrade 2 more in a 12-year period. The bid seemed like a long shot, to say the least.
The winner to organize the 2022 FIFA World Cup is Qatar.
Almost immediately, countries which submitted losing bids cried foul. Tell All Book accuses FIFA and Qatar of a secret $100 million deal. Julio Grondona alleged he took $1 million in bribes in exchange for his vote. There have been calls for a revote, but it appears as if it is too late and the bid will likely stand. All this while Qatar imports North Korean slave labor to build their football palaces, which will be abandoned immediately after use. But hey, at least it isn't Syria. Number 1, the forgotten rigging. The early 2000s were a golden era for NBA conspiracy theorists, and with tinfoil sales at an all-time high, they may have been onto something. Most people look at the 2002 Western Conference Finals as the most blatant rigging of the era, but lost in that anger is the bullshit from the year before between the Bucks and the 76ers. The NBA loves to discriminate against small markets. They really hate it when a team puts good players in place to ruin their ratings grab. The Bucks had a stout roster, which included Sam Cassell, Glenn Robinson, Lindsey Hunter, Jerome Kersey, and of course, Ray Allen. The Sixers had the answer and Dikembe, and the refs, apparently. Let's look at the math. In the 7-game series, the Sixers outshot the Bucks at the line 186-120. The Bucks led 12-3 in technicals and 5-0 in flagrant fouls. Hobbled Allen Iverson was terrible in Game 1 on 13 for 35 shooting, but with the game at 85-83 with 1:59 left, he drove the lane and got fouled. After a lane violation, a call about as rare as traveling, he hit both free throws, a clutch 3, and the 76ers won. Game 4 swung the Sixers' way as 2 no calls late sealed the Bucks' fate. In that game, the Sixers held a 2-1 foul shot advantage. Game 5 pivoted on 2 flagrant fouls and a technical. And the NBA even busted out their staple game rigger, a player suspension, banning Milwaukee's Scott Williams for Game 7, which the Sixers pulled out at home. Hard to win against a stacked deck. George Karl and Ray Allen were fined $85,000 for their post-series remarks. And earlier this year, Mr. Shuttlesworth still had words about it, 17 years later. Just the fact that Scott Williams was suspended for Game 7, you suspend one of our crucial players for a deciding game that would send us to the NBA Finals, Allen said. That, to me, is beyond me. How do you tamper with a game that much? People around the world and in the NBA wanted to see AI Kobe. That was the sentiment. And that's what makes a rigging. A clear motivation, a defined outcome, and the wool pulled over everyone's eyes. Until next time, friends.
Hi, I'm Dick Pound.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and you're not so thin-skinned that you have to press that dislike button. And if you haven't checked out the other vids in this series, please do, and like and subscribe if you have the time. I'm 5 Points Vids, and you made it to the end of this video.